think I was quite a computer nerd, or I don't know if I can use that word, but
Sure.
I had a Sinclair ZX Spectrum 48K.
Which
This
is
in
a
the 80s.
computer.
It's a computer.
Right.
I've seen a photo of it somewhere. There is a photo somewhere in the university. I've seen it today.
Really?
Yeah, with the rubber keyboard. And I used to code in BASIC at the age of 8 and 9. I was doing simple games,
Wow.
coding simple games. So that was my I did a piano with the keyboard. So you'd play with the keyboard and you could play different tunes. I did games like swapping letters. So you would write imagination, which is the word there, and then it would swap the letters and you had to guess. I don't know. I did simple stuff there.
That's quite impressive. At age 8.
8,
I mean, it's
9,
it's encouraged these days to get into coding, isn't it? But back then, I mean,
because with the Spectrum, you had no choice really. To load a game, you had to put loads, and then it was inverted commas, and then push enter, and it would load the game, which took forever. But there was a magazine those days that they brought every week. So my parents would buy it for me every week. They brought simple codes for games, little games. So I would go and code it myself to play that game. Instead of buying a game, I would code it. And while they were copying the code because you have to type.
So you were
everything.
creating the game because instead of buying the game.
Well, we bought games as well, but there
Yeah.
were simple games in that magazine. There was
Wow.
that magazine. It brought code there, and you could.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I loved it, and I would go and copy it, basically type everything in the computer, and then would play it. And while you're doing that, sometimes you make mistakes in the coding. There are bugs, and then and to fix them, you need to decipher what's there, and that made me learn a lot. So I learned BASIC by myself like that, and then you start doing your own stuff. Then you start trying to crack the other game. So the game is loading, and you break, and then you try to see the coding inside the game, and you start developing further, and then to see how did they do this, and you try to break the code to see if you can see inside.
So from a very young age, you developed this sort of analytical mind and this way of like thinking logically about things.
Maybe.
And I feel like that's probably, carried you through to some extent.
Yeah, that's
to what you do now.
That probably is the case.
Yeah.
And obviously my parents encouraged me, or never discouraged me. Well, they would buy the magazines. I couldn't do that myself. Then I got the book as well, full of examples of. So it was just this thick. Just codes for games. So you would go there, write it yourself, and then play. And most of them were rubbish, but I was just keeping myself busy and having loads of fun. It was then I did with those games. Sometimes we bought. There was one which was this was bought. But if this says something to older generations, there was one called Checky Egg 2. And myself, my sister, and my father, so this was an activity we were doing together. We built, it's a shame we don't have this anymore, everything by hand. We designed the whole map. We sketched the whole map, which was probably an A0 sheet of paper, with all the levels, everything in color by hand. Everything.
So pen and paper, sketched everything out.
So this was kind of an activity we were doing on the weekends together with my father.
Wow.
And over weekends, and you just wonder these days you would never do something like that. But we were busy and socializing, and it was like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Because that game you had to build this is the story of the game. It was an arcade game, I think that's what it's called, but platform based. But the objective was to build an Easter egg with a toy inside. So you had to collect milk, sugar, chocolate, and then the pieces of the toy. Right. So it was 4 things you had to do. But the map was really huge, and there were 2 routes you could follow to do that. One was harder than the other. And so, but on those days you couldn't save. If you die, you would die. That's it. Start all over again.
It was quite traumatic back in those days when you lost.
So we made the map so that we knew exactly what to do in each
I
screen.
see. See, the skills that that's given you, though, you know, that was just sort of stripped away with the invention of the memory card or whatever it was first, and now, you know, internal memory that you can just save and try again or whatever,
Yeah, so
reset.
it was great fun because we did that with my father, so it was great fun.